Hello and welcome back to a Christmas episode of NAS Compares here, and today we are looking at this. This is the 8K performance test of the TVS-h874. We've done our 4K and today we're going to mix it up and do our very first 8K test. And I did think that it's Christmas, a little bit of music, why not? So again, we're going to be testing a bunch of 8K files today, and we'll be going through a lot of the details about why this is a big deal very, very soon. But apart from that, I think we've wasted enough time. Why don't we make our way into this NAS and take a good look at whether this behemoth of the NAS is actually going to be 8K ready for Plex. Let's go. That is right. Today we're revisiting to the subject of Plex Media Server, and we are looking at the QNAP TVS-h874. Once again, let's get that control panel there on screen. I've talked about this before, but this is utilizing a 12th gen Intel Core processor. This is running on the i5, but there is an i7 and an i9 version available, running on 32 gig of memory. This is my second test of two. Originally I was going to do some extensive multi-device testing of this on 4K, but I thought I'd go straight into the 8K for you guys, because let's face it, if you're looking at a NAS like this, future-proofing is key. We've already got a bunch of 8K files already lined up. I'll be straight with you, I've only tested one for the introduction for this video. I've not tested any of the others, and I'm fairly certain two of them are they're not possible to be played on a NAS, frankly, because of network connectivity. But before we go any further, a few disclaimers straight off the bat. First and foremost, I've already done a full 4K test on this. You can find out on the channel, went out a few days ago. Also, I will be testing this NAS in the web browser. You can see here on the right hand side of the screen. I could and probably will use the client tool at one point, the Windows client here, which means it will play native. But bear in mind that even my laptop, which is not a modest laptop I might add, it's still going to hit a wall. And even when I was trying to bench test some early 8K files, not these ones, I could see that my system, both running the client application, getting greedy, and there in the background running OBS, that I was certainly hitting something of a local client system bottleneck there. So we are going to be heavily reliant on conversions. Don't worry, I know a number of you are going to put in the comments, why didn't I use a bunch of client tools, an 8K TV, etc, etc. Don't worry, this will happen next year. I've already got like a high def TV that I'm going to be utilizing there in a few clients, but it's really the bottlenecking of network devices and the network itself, which is really the problem when it comes to playing back 8K. So although we're looking at NASes that, you know, even now, or at least in terms of future-proofing, can output 8K file media, it's more the client devices and the network themselves that are going to have to escalate over time and evolve. So we're going to close the client for now, but we almost certainly will be coming back to it there. And again, here is our TVS-h874 there, so again, we can make our way in. I know you can skip forward a few minutes if you've already known all this before, but just in case, again, we do have transcoding enabled at Make My CPU. We are using a Plex pass. We've enabled DLNA because we're accessing everything over the local area network, but it's still a 1 gigabit Ethernet connection. And we're not going to fully saturate that, but certainly the data packets they're going to be handling in some of the bit rate. I think we have at one point 120 megabits per second 8K file, which is insane to test. But for now, what we're really going to be looking at during the course of this is that dashboard there. We want to make sure that that dashboard gives us real-time information about the use of the system for Plex and the system as a whole. We're going to duplicate that one there. And we're going to move that into this tab group here, because what we also want to be able to do is actually play the files. So let's get the list view up. Let's go for the table view. As you can see, we've got 6 test files here, and I'll be straight with you. Again, I do not believe this NAS is going to be able to play all of these. I will be pleased if it can play 3 of them, but I don't think it's going to be able to play all of them. So without further ado, I've wasted enough of your time. Let's crack straight on. The first one we're looking at here is that one that we had in the introduction to the video. And this is, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that word, Spiral Strudel 8K. It is an 8K, 8000 times 4500 resolution file at 129. I'll call it, 120 with change megabits per second bit rate there. Again, when it comes to the compression technique, you can largely eliminate H.264. You are talking H.265 or HEVC, and new and improving compression techniques arriving in the future there. Indeed, if we go to the file types themselves, you're able to see, if we get ourselves a detailed list view, that even the files of these are WebM files here. So we are talking about a very different kettle of fish from your NKVs, your AVIs, etc., and your MP4s. But for now, let's go ahead and play our file. As unsurprisingly, the system has to convert the file. We weren't surprised to see that at all, but we are seeing playback. It playbacked to 4504p or 8K, so it's still playing at 8K res. And at the bottom there, fair play. It is ever so slightly outpacing the playback there. So this is lovely stuff. We've got the file playing. Yes, it's forcing into a conversion there due to the lack of support of that codec, and I'll show you in a moment why we're being forced to do that, but gotta say, it's playing this 130 megabits per second 8K 60 frames per second file there. This is very, very impressive there, and a great start to this video there. So now we know it's going to play that. We're just going to come out of it there and revisit that Plex client. Now, the reason we're going to revisit the Plex client is I have an HEVC license on this system. There isn't. Sorry if there was a black screen there. That's Windows asking for permission. Using the Plex app on this side is going to allow us to play this file native. And this is going to where I'm going to have to show you why we're going to hit something of a problem when it comes to server-side conversions there. We're just waiting for the app to update. I think it's had a few updates recently there. I might have to fast forward to the completion of this update. Looks like we're having our app opened here, so let's come out there. We're going to have to resize that so we can still get the stats on screen for us. So again, this is using that Windows client, so this means you're not going to have to convert that compression, that HEVC, into something more playable. If we go into the 8 files there, and again, we'll play this one. And this is where you're going to see kind of the problem. Because right now, I clicked the wrong one there. We're going to go back in, get that up. You can see we're playing it at the original quality. But look at that tremendous drop in frame rate. Indeed, while I'm using OBS to record this, I'm willing to bet that you guys are seeing it even worse than I am there, while it's trying to play back this file in that original format there. 32.5 megabit there. So again, it's trying, and frankly, it's still hitting something of a wall there. And indeed, if we open up my task manager there, you're able to see that CPU and GPU is getting absolutely flawed. Yes, I have an external GPU there, but that one at the moment, it's been a bit jumpy for me recently, so I'm not giving that too much credence. But again, I think this is why we're just going to have to rely, at least for now, for the course of this video, until I do my client hardware video with a few devices, we're going to have to rely on that web browser there just for the sake of this video. It's playing the file, but it's just not able to maintain that bit rate there. So again, we'll come out of that client and go right back into utilizing the web browser here. And our next file here, again, this is Fractasil, a full Ultra HD, 19.41 megabits per second, 8000 by 4500 pixel resolution. Open that up there. If I remember correctly, when I was researching to these files offline, this is mostly still images that maintain the picture quality there. So we can go in, we're seeing playback of that file, lovely straight stuff. Again, it's had to do the conversion, we expected that there. And again, this is this idea that these files are just images there. And again, we see much healthier kind of buffer happening there at the bottom. The CPU, again, we're seeing bumpy spikes, but not really anything to be overly concerned with. And I do think this is kind of the area where the subject of bandwidth has to be discussed a little bit, because even there we saw a peak just now of that one just before it went off screen was 430 megabits, so 43 megabytes. halfway saturating the entire network connection. And given that the device is both uploading on the same network as I am downloading to view it, that to me gives you a good idea about just how busy the traffic was during that previous file. But again, we're seeing playback. That's absolutely fine. I'm just going to quickly replay that first file there while we're seeing that converted version. And I just want to see what is the network outputting in that converted version. So that converted version of that first file, seemingly okay. I think it was mainly when we were using that web client there that when it wasn't compressed or wasn't converted because of the codec and the scale, that's when we saw the network just getting overly saturated there, and hence why 8K and 1 GBE, at least when you're going to play natively, may well be something of a bottleneck for many of us. But for now, let's come out of that and we'll test file number 3. This is Ghost Town, another an 8K one. This is a GoPro recording at 33.7 megabits per second, and it's 7,680 by 4,320, still 8K. We can play back that file. Open it up at the bottom. We've got our specs there at the bottom of the screen. Obviously, we're going into that conversion. That's unavoidable. But leaving it there, still got OBS kicking around there in the background. We're seeing that network there jump up to 100 megabits. So again, only 10 megabytes on our 100 megabyte connection. But yeah, that's playing absolutely fine there. That is great to see. Again, we may have to start introducing a few more 8K file tests into the future just to give the results of this now just a little sense of relativity. But it's some great future-proofing, at least in terms of the hardware. And again, I kind of thought the first file that I tested would fail, so I'm kind of surprised this one's doing as well as it is. But for now, let's make our way out. This is a recording from the ISS, International Space Station, a fly-through cupola, 8K, 8192 by 4096, and again this is 129.17 megabits per second there. Let's go ahead and play back that file. And again, the scale of this, I will be very impressed if it plays this file, because I think this might be the heaviest file of all of them, and it is buffering it. I'm not going to say this has been a flawless playback, because it hasn't. This is quite slow, and I think at this pace I will be surprised if buffering can outpace that of playback. It's a very dark file because this is taken, from space. But even there, we're seeing playback. The CPU has jumped up. This is the highest I've ever seen this CPU jump, by the way. We've reached we're using 28.99% for Plex. And, such a shame. We were getting to the outside view of the ISS. But still, nonetheless, it did all right. But I'm not going to give this NAS too much crap for not being able to play back this huge file. Because I think a big part of that, it's going to be just outputting the scale of that file. The network's not presenting too much of a problem. If we go onto my system here, we can see in terms of what I'm receiving. If we go onto that onboard GPU, it didn't max out. So again, none of this can really be blamed on the client. And it's doing all right, but again, we're just hitting that as buffering can only just about outpace it. But still, nonetheless, it's not a pass, but it's a valiant effort there. We still have another ISS test file there. But next up, Mandelbox 4DW transformation, an 8K full Ultra HD 50 frames per second file. This is Opus 8000 times 4500 and 36.72 megabits per second there. Let's go ahead and get that opened up. I believe this is from the same repository that I found that first file there. But we're playing the file and it's playing the original. Going there, we're able to convert it. It's converting the file. It's absolutely fine. CPU, not too concerned. We're seeing a small spike there, but even then, that's only 6 megabytes. Nothing really to be overly concerned with. And I'd call that an absolute success. This one, it's playing that file. And once again, the TVS-h874 is really pulling its weight here. So next, we'll go to our final file here. This is a view from the Earth, another ISS. And again, this is 82.37 megabits per second. So although it's the same resolution, it's, just above half the bit rate. So it's going to be interesting to see if that has any impact on the overall playback and the buffering there. or was the sheer weight of that initial file just too much for this system? So again, buffering, we've not even seen buffering really start. We're very, very slow creeping along there. We're already seeing that CPU spike start to appear. And I think, again, even if this file plays, I'm not really prepared to call this a success, because it is attempting to play the file. And this is another one of the files in quite a dark environment there. So if we get that out the way. No, I'm afraid I can't really call this a success. We're going to see that ring in the middle of the screen. And there it is. We saw the spike on my local system there. I still haven't maxed out things on my system, so it's not that that's forming any kind of bottleneck there. We've not maxed out, so unfortunately we can't call this playback a test. So those are our 8K files. Next test I'm going to perform is to run 2 instances of the lowest file there. So I believe the Ghost Town file, that played quite well. So do you know what? Why don't we go with 2 different playback files there? So again, we're going to have to do a very brief bit of minimization there, while we've got lots of files and folders there in the background. Bring that down, bring that up. And we're just going to run now 2 instances of that 4K file. So we're going to go with Ghost Town playing in this one, and in this one we're going to go Mandelbox 4D. So both of them, let's bring up their respective stats. Bring that one up there at the bottom. Bring that one's respective stats as well while it plays the file and I knock around with these files and folders. Bring that up there. I think one issue we're going to have right now is these files not wanting to play side by side, but yep, we've got them both playing there. They're both running in that converted layout and still playing them. The buffering is still staying ahead. We're still getting that great 8K performance, but again, these are still at that 30 megabit line. And, you know, I think right now we're looking at that 50 or 60 mark as kind of the middle ground in terms of 8K, but we're still getting these 2 files to play one after the other. So we'll do one more test before we wrap things up for both this video and the year here on the channel. I'll have to resize that down to something a little bit more visible for us, so we can still keep an eye on the CPU at the bottom of the screen there. Move that over there. Hopefully my mouse plays the game. So again, what we'll go with, I'm going to go with, this is quite the beefy file there at the top. I do start, and I think is wrong in terms of its scoring. So we're going to, again, this time we'll go with Ghost Town on U. And on U, we're going to go with Farkle, whatever it is, play from the beginning. There we go. We've got all 3 files now, all playing in 8K at the same time. We're seeing them all registered there in the background. We're seeing the bandwidth here start to rank up a little bit, but nothing too painful. And again, perfect playback for all of those files there. We're seeing a pause there on the bottom one. I will say I just clocked that pause, but again, because this is playing still images, it's very hard to read that. But I think that's the breaking point there. We're seeing those 3 files is where we saw both the network bandwidth and maybe even my client machine present itself as the problem there. But at least for now, I think I'm going to wrap things up there on that 8K testing. And I think really that's all we need to know right now about the overall kind of performance of this NAS at 8K until we start introducing some of those 8K client devices. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've got something a little special for the outro for this video. But apart from that, let's bring me back on camera. Bring me back in, because let's face it, if I'm going to talk to you, I'd rather you be able to see me. Hello, here I am. Thank you so much for watching the channel this year. I hope you have yourselves a lovely Christmas. If you did enjoy this video, there are going to be further videos on not only the subject of Plex and 8K, but of course this particular NAS, which is kind of the most ultimate Plex NAS I've utilised on the channel ever. But apart from that, let's play you out with the end of today's video.